Let's talk about wholesale. Are you interested in wholesale? Have you ever wanted to wholesale a paper product or a paper good? I have an incredible guest today on the Dream Printing podcast. Her name is Katie Hunt. She is the founder of Proof to Product, and she has an incredible program called Paper Camp, and she helps people break into wholesale. And honestly, this is something that I do not have a ton of background in. I've been super curious about wholesale. I have a ton of questions. So if you've been wondering, how do you get into boutiques? How do you get your product on the shelves of a store? Katie is the girl to know. You are going to love this episode. Let's go ahead and dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Dream Printing podcast. I am so excited. I have met someone who is incredible, and we are definitely birds of a feather. I'm excited that we're going to finally flock together and talk and hang out. I have the amazing Katie Hunt. She is the host of Proof to Product, and she's the creator of Paper Camp, which is the only summer camp I want to go to as a paper lover. Thick, luxurious paper, Katie, is my love language. And so when I heard that you made a thing called Paper Camp, I was like, where do I sign up? I've got my sleeping bag. I'm ready to go to Paper
Yeah.
Camp. Yeah. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Polly. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yay. Okay. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about Paper Camp. Tell us how you kind of got started in this.
Yeah, sure. So, I had a product brand for over 8 years, and I was working in the corporate world at the time. I needed a creative outlet. I have a real sharp business background. I have two MBAs, over a decade in the corporate world, but I needed creativity. And so I was working my day job, and nights and weekends, I started creating things for my wedding. I did invitations for our wedding, note cards for our bridesmaids. And soon I was in that stage of life where other friends and family were getting married. So people started asking me to do things for them. So I ended up falling into business a little bit in terms of like, oh, let me just make these for everybody else, charging things. But then I started making other products. I started making greeting cards. I started making book plates and magnets and like all sorts of things. And my mom said to me, Kate, if you're going to do this, you should just do this. Right.
Mm.
And so within 6 months of starting this business, more for personal reasons, I went to a international trade show to wholesale my products. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. My prices were too high. I got shut down by the fire marshal 18 hours before the show started because of an issue with our booth. We got it sorted though. And I learned a ton about my product line, the business of wholesale, and also what I wanted to be doing going forward. So I left there with a lot of lessons learned, a handful of orders, and I thought, this is incredible. I want to do more of this. But I also left with a huge network of people that were doing what I did, other independent artists who were trying to create a brand and selling it wholesale. And what I saw was, and I went for several years, and that was in 2009. And then in 2011, after being there for a handful of years, I looked around and I saw all these folks are so creative, but they lack a lot of the business knowledge that I have. And I am struggling with making some of this art and these products that I want to make. Let's get us together and let's help each other so that both of our businesses can get stronger. And so that was when I started Proof to Product in 2011. And it started as simple as teleconference calls. And then because webinars and like Zoom weren't things back then, we spread the word through word of mouth on Twitter because Instagram wasn't even around. Like, I mean, we're talking real grassroots here. It was all referral based. And it was a bunch of friends essentially getting on a call, and I would bring in guest speakers and we'd ask questions of them, and we grew together. And then, it's morphed and it's changed. It's become more of a formal course. We've held in-person conferences, and now we are going to be hosting our 44th round of Paper Camp in just a couple of weeks is when we open enrollment. And it's just blossomed into a very beautiful thing that involves coaching, a really rich community, and newest trends for wholesale. And because my roots are in the paper world, and because most of the people that I was working with in the very early days, we called it Paper Camp. But really what we teach is wholesale. We teach you how to get your product line ready, how to make sure you're sales terms and conditions are ready. Then we teach you marketing strategies for reaching new accounts for wholesale, but also nurturing the existing accounts that you have too. So, and we talk about trade shows too. We still have that piece in there as well.
That's amazing. You said you went to the trade show. Are you talking about the National Stationery Show at like usually at the
Yeah.
Javits Center?
Yeah, it's no longer a thing. It got absorbed by New York Now several years ago, and now New York Now no longer has it as a like co-located show. But yes, at the time it was a National Stationery Show. Way back in the day, it used to be two whole floors of Javits in New York, so it was huge.
Yeah.
And then when I was there, it was still two floors, but we saw it shrink down too. So I exhibited at that show particularly for I think about 8 or 9 years.
I might have walked past your booth. I
You could
lived
have.
not far from Javits.
Mhm.
When my husband got married in New York in 2015, and I had just launched my planner. The 2015 planner was my first one. And
Okay.
so I was like, maybe I'll do the trade show. And so I just
I
bought
was
a ticket for
there.
myself as like a buyer ticket because I wasn't ready to, I didn't have anything. I didn't know anything from up from down. But I was like, maybe one day I'll be here. And so I remember walking the floor and just getting everyone's line sheets and being like, I've got work to do. I don't know. I wouldn't know the first thing about having a booth here, but it was
Yeah.
so inspiring just walking around and seeing all those creators. Absolutely just so cool. Back to the paper camp in general. So
Yeah.
it's not just for paper products. Like if someone's watching this and they have candles, they have purses, maybe they have some other
Yeah.
fun little product. It's for anyone that wants to get into wholesale.
It really is. And I've grappled with changing in the name of this, but how do you change the name of a program that you've run 44 times and has like a, name for itself in the industry? But yes, you're correct. We work with all brands selling all types of goods because really what we're teaching are the business foundations of selling wholesale and the growth strategies people need to really expand. So we're not teaching you how to create your products. We're teaching you how to take the products you already have and make sure that they're ready to start selling wholesale. So we look at your pricing, we look at your profit margins, we look at the sales tools you're using, we look at your terms and conditions. And frankly, there's a lot of folks, I'm running through scholarship applications right now. There's a lot of folks who are leaving money on the table because of simple tweaks they need to make. They might be 25 cents below industry standard for a product, but if you extrapolate that out to 1,000 units, that 25% really makes a difference to the overall bottom line for the business. There's people that don't really understand how minimum order quantities work. And if you don't need to know that stuff, you're not going to know it. But if you're selling wholesale, you definitely need to know. So there's little things like that that really do make a big impact to the bottom line, and that we're showing them this is what you need to be focused on. So these things apply to whatever products they're selling, whether it's, as you said, candles, jewelry, purses, or paper goods as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all my print school students and how this would honestly be such a great next step for them after they've ideated their product, they have designed their product, they've printed their sample, they've launched their product through launch school, and now they have inventory. It's either in the
Yeah.
garage, it's in the warehouse, and they're like, let's move it. I think Paper
Yeah.
Camp would be such a great next step for them to take their products and get it into bigger spaces,
Mhm.
go after some of the big names, some of the retailers, even local boutiques.
Yeah.
Do you find that the strategy for the big retailers and local boutiques is super different?
Completely different. And I will tell you that the bread and butter of our wholesale sales for our community are the independent boutiques. We
Mhm.
can build stronger relationships. They tend to order more frequently. They're smaller orders than the big box key accounts, but they're more consistent than the key accounts. Key accounts may pick up one or two of your SKUs, and the indie shops will tend to pick up a larger collection of things and again buy more frequently. So we do focus on strategies that appeal to both of those customer bases, but for the most part, most people that come into Paper Camp, if they're just getting started with wholesale, we focus on the indie strategies first because that's where it's an easier yes. And then if they're already selling to dozens of stores and have a solid product line, then we talk about the key accounts and how to target those.
That's so cool. I know when I was starting out, I did not know up from down with the
Me
business side of
neither.
things. I was putting everything in a sketchbook like a creative person. And I remember my friend Amanda, who has an MBA and she works at IBM now. And like, she's
Yep.
just a spreadsheet queen, which now I'm obsessed with spreadsheets. Like, I live for spreadsheets, but that was a learned skill. Like, it took a long
Mhm.
time for me to really be what my friends call me a spreadsheet queen. Um, And she was like, Polly, where are you putting all this data, like your numbers? And I'm like, oh, I've got my sketchbook. She's like, oh, no, 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 no. And it's like you need those people in your life. I think God kind of just his greatest gifts are people, and he connects us with the folks that
Mhm.
we need for the path that we're on. And so I'm really
Yeah.
excited to have met you and to be able to steer people your way to grow in wholesale. And I know I'm excited to learn as much as I can as well. So,
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
what do you think is the big misconception with wholesale and breaking into it, or maybe something that students tend to think when they join paper camp and they're like, whoa, I had no idea. So what
Yeah.
would you say there?
I would say that this answer has shifted over the years as the
Hmm.
industry has shifted. And there's really two things that I would point to at this time and place. One, a lot of people think that if they just get on the platform Fair, which is a wholesale sales platform, that they will immediately be found by hundreds of stores and be successful with wholesale. And the fact is, that's just not true. Fair, in my opinion, is a point of sale tool for you, but you still have to drive the traffic. We cannot use, and I talk about Fair a lot, that it is a tool. It offers a lot of value to a lot of folks. It has helped a lot of people reach more stores, but ultimately it is not there to be a visibility tool for you. You can't rely on their algorithm or their marketing to bring new shops to you. You need to, get your products there. And yes, it's a great tool for that, but you also need to drive traffic. And so I see a lot of folks, especially in like Facebook groups and things that are, inside the industry, where it's like, well, I'm on Fair, what now? Like nothing's happening, nothing's coming. And like, you know, selling our products is a lot more than just posting things online, right? We need to talk about our products. If we're not talking about our products, no one knows about them and they're not going to purchase. The same is true for retail. But on the wholesale side, this is like really important because I think there's a lot of misconceptions that, oh, I'm going to sell wholesale. Let me hop on Fair. I'll be golden. Like they'll bring me
Mhm.
the customers and everything will be fine. And that is just not the case. You have to do a lot of legwork, a lot of hard work. You need to research stores that are going to be the right fit for the products that you are selling. And you need to have thoughtful outreach and thoughtful pitches and thoughtful follow up. And so that is one big misconception that I'm seeing, the over reliance on tools like Fair to make the sales come. The other thing I was going to say is there's a misconception that when you start selling wholesale, that you'll be able to leverage all of your retail knowledge and systems and processes. And wholesale is a very different ballgame than selling direct to consumer. And in many ways, I tell people that if you're going to sell wholesale, that needs to be the thing that is the priority in your business. And then we build from that your retail strategy off of it, because things for wholesale happen much earlier than they do for retail. And an example of this is holiday products. Holiday people, stores start buying holiday as early as May. They do most of their bulk of buying in June, July, August during the trade show season, but some are as late as like September, October. But typically it's the summer seasons that they're buying holiday. Us as general consumers aren't necessarily thinking about holiday stuff until maybe October, November, even December, right? And so the timing of when we're releasing products, when we're marketing certain products, is going to vary depending on which market we're talking to. And so if you were to lead with retail and have that be your primary focus, you would miss the entire season of wholesale buying for that season. And so it's just something that I want folks to realize and think about, because we need to shift our strategy plan around how we're approaching wholesale if that's what you intend to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, I remember talking to Hobby Lobby years ago, and I was pitching them my planner. This was probably 2017. I'd gone on a mission, not a mission trip, but like a fact-finding trip with A21, and I met some folks from the Hobby Lobby team that were there as well because they were also big donors to A21. And so I started speaking to them and reaching out, and the more I dove into it, it was like, oh, I've got to have my planners done like 8 months earlier,
12,
and I
actually.
kept going,
Wholesale,
maybe next year,
yeah.
and I let that kind of fizzle away because it was a whole different timeline
Mhm.
for production, especially for like a dated product.
Yeah.
And so that's so interesting. Yeah, you're totally
So,
right. It is a
so the
completely different
dated
strategy.
products, I want to make sure your audience knows this. For dated products like calendars or planners or things like that, that's releasing a whole year in advance. So, for example, coming up in January 2025, that is when people will be releasing their 2026 planners and calendars to the wholesale market. That's when people will be placing orders. They probably won't ship them until later in the year, but that's when The samples have to be ready, the photos, the listings, all that stuff have to be ready. It's like, it's kind of wild how far out. And then like you're talking about Hobby Lobby and other key accounts, they're even further. Sometimes they're working, 2 years out on them.
Mhm. How do you coach your students to prepare for, let's say, net 90 terms and those kind of things? Are you typically pushing
Yeah.
them towards like business loans or?
No, I would say that most independent shops, we're not offering terms to them unless they've already established that they're a good client that pays on time and comes back time and time again. The larger key accounts will ask for net terms. They'll also ask for discounts, and those are one-off conversations that you're going to need to have on a case-by-case basis. The cash flow with the larger accounts, it does get difficult to manage, which is why we start with the indies. We get the cash flow going, we get the consistent orders coming in so that people do have more of a baseline that they can pull from if they need. Majority of my customers are either self-funded, they do have lines, some of them do have lines of credit, some have gotten short-term loans for larger key account orders. In terms of the net terms, we're also asking for shorter turnaround times. We're negotiating that into deals. So net 60, net 30, meaning they'll get paid 30 or 60 days after the product arrives at the store. Actually, it's after shipping, but some of them are a little different depending on which store you're working with. But my advice to folks is avoid offering those unless you're requested. This is also another reason why people are using Fair, because if the order goes through Fair, Fair will cover the gap of the net terms.
Oh,
So,
neat.
yeah. So that's one of the benefits of using a third-party platform like that.
Yeah. That's amazing. When you were talking about fair, that kind of reminded me of a big misconception in retail with Amazon. People think, oh, if I'm
Yes,
on Amazon,
I've made
people
it.
just find products on Amazon because I do. I mean, I go on there and find products all the time,
Yeah.
way more than I should, honestly. But you still have to drive the traffic when you set up an Amazon listing. It's the same thing. I think maybe after you have a ton of good reviews and a lot of really solid traffic, you'll have a couple folks find you through Googling something close to it or searching in Amazon. But for the most part, it's going to be traffic that you drive. And then you still have to
100%.
pay that commission to Amazon as if they drove the traffic. So I do help students with Amazon, but it's not my personal favorite tool.
Yeah.
It's a great one for, outsourcing shipping and customer service, but yeah, it's kind of the same misconception.
Yeah, and Fair will waive commissions if you have proof that you brought them to the platform. So if you have sent emails to the shop owners, if you met them at a trade show, there's specific things that you can submit to show like, hey, actually we're the ones that drove this traffic to our site, and they'll waive the commission. Which it gets a little tricky because the rules around that keep changing, but I agree with you. Like it's a lot of work still, even if you're utilizing these larger platforms for sales.
That's amazing. So for my students specifically who have a product, or if anyone's watching on YouTube and they're like, I've got a paper product, or maybe they have a candle business, or they're
Yeah.
about to launch a product, where should someone be before they join Paper Camp or apply to join Paper Camp?
Yeah. So we have a free audio series called Is Wholesale Right for You? And I walk you through 9 questions that you should ask yourself to decide if wholesale is the right next step for your business. And we talk about a lot of logistics. We talk about how large your product line is. We talk about how are you making your products? Do you have inventory on hand? Some of the key things that are going to make it easier or more difficult for you to actually fulfill wholesale orders as they come in. And I very intentionally, I'm going to hop back to what we talk about in Paper Camp real quick, but I very much scaffold the content in Paper Camp in a very strategic way. We start with your product because we need a solid product line that's priced right and profitable. And then we go to your sales tools. What are your terms and conditions? What are your, do you have your catalog in place? All these things, because those are going to do the job of selling your product. And then we go to the marketing and the outreach and the connection and the sales stuff. And we do that because if a lot of people want to jump to the marketing, and if they don't have a solid product line, or if their sales tools aren't in alignment, there's no reason to do the marketing yet, because you're going to attract people to a product line that's not quite ready for it. And so I go through a lot of these questions in our audio series, and folks can get that at proof2product.com/private pod. They can listen in an hour, but I'll go through some of them now. It's really about having enough product, having it priced right, and making sure that you can manage inventory. So we recommend having at least 48 SKUs before you start selling wholesale, which usually catches people by surprise. And they'll say, I have one planner. I don't expect you to have 48 planners. But I do think that it's advantageous to you and will give you a better showing with stores if you have other ancillary products. So if you have pen sets, if you have bookmarks, if you have like things that kind of tie to your planner, you can expand the collection with, 48 SKUs there. But the reason we suggest 48 SKUs is because we want you to have enough product that a buyer can pick and choose items and still hit your opening order amount. Unfortunately, no buyer is going to purchase everything that we offer. They're just not, I've never experienced a buyer that has done that. So we need to have enough that there's a variety there that they can pick and choose. But there's a lot of other really great questions that folks need to ask themselves to determine if they're ready for this. And if they're not ready, I provide really concrete actionable steps that they can start implementing now to get ready.
Right. So washi tape, notepads, little journals, pin sets, things like that
Yeah,
that make sense. Stickers. Um,
exactly. All the things a planner girl or guy would want to, make the experience of using the planner even better.
cool. That's amazing. Well, this
Yeah.
has been so educational. I really appreciate you coming in and talking
Yeah.
about everything with Paper Camp and your journey. I guess one thing I was reading on your website was the importance of entrepreneurs having community. And that was something that you guys value
Yeah.
a lot over there. So I'd love for
Yeah.
you just to kind of expand on that. If you want to give any final words of wisdom to people as they're on their entrepreneurial journey and growing their
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. I'm sure you see it in your own community, but entrepreneurship can feel really lonely. So many folks are working at home alone. I started at my kitchen table. I still work alone, even though I have a small team that works with me. We're all remote. And I know this is the case for a majority of the folks that we work with. Some have small teams, but even then, you're as the entrepreneur, as the leader of your company, you are making decisions day in and day out. There is decision fatigue involved in this. There is just a sense of like, doubt sometimes. Am I making the right choices? Am I allocating my money in the right places? Like, it's easy to get in our heads, especially when we're working alone. And the other thing about this is there's so much that I've experienced that could benefit others. And there's things that you've experienced that would benefit me or others. And when we put our heads together, we really can amplify our growth much more quickly because we're not going to step in the same pitfalls or holes that somebody else has stepped in. And so I truly believe in sharing everything we know. And I believe in giving a lot of free resources and advice in our podcast and all of the courses that we have that are available for free, because I want people to grow their business to a place where they can then come to one of our programs. And the same is true with community. I want people knowing that they have people they can turn to and ask a question that may feel silly or dumb or whatever. There's no dumb questions. We've all, if I tell people, if you're thinking it, somebody else is thinking it too. So let's talk about it. But we have a really robust community. We've been doing this since 2011. So like years and years of conversations that have evolved. We continue to boost old threads that came in when new topics need to be like updated and things. And it's just, there's so much we can learn from one another. We need to be constantly learning and evolving as an entrepreneur and able to stay fresh and relevant in this business. And we do that through the connections and the relationships that we have. Business is truly built on relationships. And so that includes our peer relationships, that includes our relationships with our customers. And so we are already working towards strong customer relations, but let's make sure we've got that peer support as well.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Well, I'm so excited to have met you. Thank you for
You
sharing
as
all of your
well.
knowledge. I'm
Of course.
excited to dream again in the wholesale space. And I cannot wait to point some of my print school students to you because they have so much to learn from you and to grow in their wholesale business. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell us again where to find your podcast and
Yeah.
your website to sign up for Paper Camp.
You bet. So we're called my business and my podcast are called Proof to Product, and we're available on all the podcast platforms out there. We've got over 300 and I think 50 episodes at this point of really enriching content and a lot of storytelling about folks that have started from different avenues and grown their business in different ways. You can sign up for the waitlist or enroll in Paper Camp at prooftoproduct.com/papercamp. And if you're interested in that audio series that I mentioned, that is at prooftoproduct.com/privatepod.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katie, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Polly.